Well, hello there, my fellow rushers. How are you doing today? King Rexy here. And finally, I can proudly tell you that Rush Vengeance Reborn is getting its first anniversary update. Yep, we're talking about update 10.0, and oh boy, do we have a lot of changes to talk about. Like, I'm gonna show you a brief summary, but as you can see here, we have whopping 64 pages worth of content, which is a lot. Like, considering the previous changelogs that I've made, this is probably, if not, the longest one out there. So first of all, there is a new mini-campaign, and it's called Unholy Resurrection. It is unlocked after you beat level 31, so once you beat the entire post-game, you can play through this mini-campaign. The reason why I locked it behind level 31 is pretty simple. You kinda need every single upgrade in your arsenal in order to beat it. Like, otherwise, if you're playing on Impossible without a dragon, it's close to impossible. Maybe even impossible if you're playing some of the Heroic and Irons, which we're gonna get to in a bit. But yeah, new mini-campaign, and it has whopping 3 levels, 9 new enemies, 1 mini-boss, and 3 bosses that you have to face spread across the level. Well, technically the mini-bosses are 5, but that's only if you're counting the Irons, which yes, this new campaign has Heroic and Irons as well. It's not just the campaign stages. No. I went out of my way to make a Heroic and Iron for that. And speaking of which, let me tell you something about the Heroic and Irons. First of all, the Heroic challenges have been reworked. Instead of them now having tier 1 towers available, none of them have any towers. If you try to get a tower, guess what? You're gonna get cut. No towers are allowed. You only have your hero, reinforcements, and spells. So it's gonna come down to heavy micro and correct hero choice. And another minor change, the heroic challenges, which used to be called heroic tasks, have been renamed to Hero's Trial for unrelated reasons. Now for the Irons, I reworked all 36 mini bosses that were in the game, and let me tell you, that took forever. Like, there's let me check. How many pages do I even have on this? Oh my. Like, the mini-bosses alone are like 10 pages out of the 64 that I showcased in the changelog. So yeah, that's a lot, to say the least. That is indeed a lot. But, other than that, we also have the Pirate Kings DLC. Because now, everything about it has been reworked. Campaigns, Heroic, and Irons, everything has been reworked. Boss dialogue, reworked. New soundtrack, check. Pretty much anything you can think of for the Pirate Kings DLC, it's been changed, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while. Also, the difficulty scaling for the game is slightly different. Now, on casual, enemies have the same amount of HP as listed in the encyclopedia. Then, on normal, they have 15% more HP, on veteran they have 30%, and on impossible they have 50%. But you don't have to memorize it, because now, when you go to select the difficulty, it tells you specifically how much bonus HP the enemies are gonna have, which is pretty nice, I would say. I'm not sure why they didn't add it earlier. Another nice quality of life feature is the sell price of towers has been reworked back to vanilla, so instead of saying that you're gonna get 70% of the gold back, now it tells you how much gold exactly you're gonna get by selling the tower. So just for the sake of convenience. And one of the biggest, and I mean the biggest feature, is every single tower has gotten its third ability back. Some of them have been just revived from the vanilla version and reworked, others are completely new. So yeah, that's quite a lot of stuff, don't you think? It sure is. Now you might be thinking, why not talk about the new campaign more? Well, because I don't want to spoil anything yet. So I want people to experience it on their own, but I probably will make a live stream just going through it, just to showcase it a bit. And yeah, as for the tower abilities, well, there's a lot. Like, there's 22 towers in the game so far, so I can't go through all of the abilities at the same time, so I'll just pick a selected few towers. For example, the Shadow Archer has got his insta-kill back, so that's quite nice. You're gonna have it every 40, 35, and then 30 seconds. And it has smart targeting on top of that, so you don't have to worry about the ability being wasted, which is very big if I do say so myself. The Dark Knights have also gotten a new ability called Critical Strike, which kinda works similar to how the Dark Knights are in Revengeance, Basically, every 16 seconds they channel a powerful attack that deals true damage, and it also applies bleed over 3 seconds. And overall it's pretty solid. And the base damage on the attack, outside of the bleed, gets stronger the higher level the ability is. Now, it is a bit pricey, I must admit, 240 gold per upgrade. Compared to other abilities in the game, this one is on the high end. But consider that you have 3 Dark Knights, so imagine the amount of true damage you can pull off. It's insane. The Orc Mage, or Orc Shaman as some people call it. This tower got quite a bit of rework, so I must go into that in order for you to understand what the ability does. So now, the tower no longer stuns its primary target. The attack speed has been reduced significantly, but it deals area magic damage, and the AoE deals more damage based on the level of the tower. And once you get the new ability called High Voltage, it increases the AoE size of the attack by 30%, and it makes the AoE around it deal 100% of the base attack's damage, which is quite a lot if I have to be honest. Like, this tower went from I'd say B tier to high A tier, at least for my playstyle. Another interesting ability is the War Zeppelin. He got his Goblin Scout back, and it's a little bit more balanced. I believe back in the day when the tower still had 3 abilities, it used to boost the tower's range by 25%, now it's only 15%. But still, that's a pretty decent increase, at least in my opinion. And now for one last tower, the Elite Harassers. They have a new ability called Warrior of the Twilight, and it summons an Avenger. Yeah, we have Avengers now. That's cool, right? It sure is. And what he does is he acts as pretty much a tank, just absorbing damage and dishing out some decent damage on his own. And he boosts the armor and base damage of nearby harassers by 25%. But the ability is quite expensive, so maybe don't rush it right away. Now for the enemies. There have been a lot of changes when it comes down to the enemies, especially the Pirate King's DLC. So I can't go through all of them because that would take forever. But what I can tell you is that we have a few new enemies / mini-bosses. One of the new enemies is the Samurai, which is kind of a difficult unit. He has kind of chunky HP, high armor, he moves relatively fast, at least for this caliber of unit. And he also deals AoE true damage, has an insta-kill chance, so pretty annoying unit overall. He appears on level 24 to 25. And there's another additional unit that appears on level 27 and 28 called the Toxic Blob. And these guys, they're kinda fine. They're just your average mid-tier enemy, but they're also immune to status effects. So yeah, that's a little annoying, and they also have high physical damage, so they're pretty hard to stall. They come in big numbers, and you can't stun them, slow them, or apply any damage over time. So yeah, they're not fun to deal with, let's say that. Another interesting thingy is we have some mini-bosses on the Irons that were added, like Eridan and Zizzy, which you can find on level 13's Iron and level 31 respectively. So yeah, quite a lot of changes have happened to the enemies. You can check the changelog that I'll leave down in the description if you want more details. As for the towers, a lot of changes have happened to them, so I'm only gonna go through a few. The Shadow Archer has gotten a massive damage reduction at tier 2 and 3. The Shadow Mark has gotten slight nerf at tier 2. The Bleed can now be applied on every single tier of the tower, but the chance varies. And the Crow's Nest, I can't believe I'm saying it, but it got significantly nerfed. The damage went down significantly, but to compensate, the price of the ability is a lot cheaper, and on top of that, whenever the Crow attacks an enemy, it reduces their armor by a little bit. I believe at tier 3 it's 15%, so if you have like a low armored enemy, it can help out quite a bit, but it also is really good versus physical immune enemies, because technically they have 100% armor, so if you go onto them with a Crow, they only have 85% armor, so you can then potentially cheese some physical immune enemies with the Crow. But it's not the best strategy, I must admit. Rotten Forest has gotten nerfed quite a bit. The slow per tier went down significantly, so that's a bit annoying. I have to be honest, like, I really didn't want to do this, but the Rotten Forest was proven to be too broken. So, the slow has been nerfed significantly, especially at tier 4. Another interesting thing is the Roots of Evil have been nerfed, so the duration of the stun went down a little bit, so it's no longer 6 seconds, it's 4.5 seconds. And another thing is that the enemy cap for the Roots of Evil has been reduced by half. So yeah, the tower got nerfed hard. Now, why am I nerfing this tower so much? Well, because it's the starting artillery, and I don't want it to be that busted. I still want people to be using the other artilleries, and Rotten Forest unfortunately had to suffer because of it. The Dark Knights, they've also been reworked a little bit. They have more HP per tier. Their respawn rate has been increased a little bit, so that's a bit of a compensation. They also have a new ability, but I know I've said earlier that they have the critical strike, but they also got another one, which replaces Brutal Strike, and it's called Unbreakable Will. Whenever they drop below 25% health, they heal for 40% of their max health over 5 seconds, but the ability has 30 seconds cooldown, so you're not gonna be able to use it very, very often. And keep in mind, you need to be in melee in order for this ability to be procced. So it has quite a few conditions, but if you can proc it at the right time, you can make the Dark Knight stall for a lot of time. Another thing that I forgot to mention is Armor of Thorns. It can now only be upgraded once, and it deals 60 true damage flat. Which kinda sucks, but then again, the ability was already kinda busted, and Armor of Thorns is one of those abilities where you can either make weak, mid, or OP. And it's kinda hard to strike a good balance with it, so I figure that just leaving it at 60 true damage flat is good enough. Which is still a massive nerf compared to how powerful it used to be, but on the bright side, it only costs 230 gold, as opposed to 450 to be maxed out, so you're saving on quite a bit of money there. Also, their low-end and high-end damage at tier 3 and 4 has been adjusted a little bit, and that's mostly because I wanted to deal more consistent damage. And one more tower that I want to mention is the Swamp Thing, because, yeah, the Swamp Thing got a very interesting rework. So, it has multiple different effects based on whether or not it's ranged or melee, and that involves Blinding Liquid and Smash. Let's start off with Smash. So, in melee, now the ability has 20 seconds cooldown, and it deals 100, 180, and then 260 physical damage in an AoE, stunning enemies for 5 seconds. As for the Blinding Liquid, the effect is quite simple. Every 12 seconds it strikes a single enemy, and it can deal at tier 3 anywhere between 220 to 280 physical damage, but it also reduces its target damage by 55% for 6 seconds, making it even better at stalling, especially versus high tier enemies. Now the ability does not affect mini-bosses or bosses, so don't think of the Swamp Thing as this unkillable unit. Not many enemies can kill it, but still, it's susceptible to stuff like insta-kills, so yeah, be careful around those. And one more thing that I wanted to mention is the heroes. There weren't that many hero changes, surprisingly, but I want to go over some of them. For example, Azra, she got her attack range reduced by a tiny bit, it went down from 450 to 440, and she now has the magic resistance as opposed to armor. Grosh now has no resistances, and that's simply because I wanted to make him a little bit weaker since he is one of the starter heroes, so him losing that armor makes him a little bit better in a way. You might say that this is unnecessary, but keep in mind he has over 900 HP at once he's maxed out, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't need that armor. Tramin also got slightly reworked. Bombageddon now deals a lot less damage per bomb, but the bomb amount has been increased by quite a bit. And Rocket Barrage cooldown has been increased from 14 to 16 seconds. Rexius has a massive attack speed increase. What else is there? Junpei now has his last stand reworked a little bit. Now, the minimal HP threshold went up from 35% to 50%, so you can proc last stand a lot more often. But the bonus damage has been reduced by a lot, because 150% bonus melee damage is not okay. So I nerfed it down to 45%, making it more grounded. But as a small compensation, the range of last stand has been increased from 285 to 320. And his ultimate now also slows based on the tier. Once you max it out, it can slow enemies down by 50%, which is pretty decent amount. And now for Mortimus, he got quite a little bit of bonuses here and there, mostly to Call of the Haunted. The cooldown went down from 18 seconds to 14 seconds, and Cursed ground damage per tick has been increased at tier 1 and tier 2 to make it a little bit more consistent. Doom Tank got some bug fixes, mostly due to the fact that he was getting locked into animations from time to time, and a big thing that people were demanding is that the expendables at tier 3 no longer shoot while the Doom Tank is moving, so that's nice. Dianian, oh boy, this guy got reworked a lot, because he was probably one of the hardest heroes to decide what to do with. Initially, I thought of him as just support the dragon, where he doesn't do all that much damage but has a lot of stalling. Well, I decided to change him up again. So now he has high magic resistance at level 10, or in this case 70%. His base damage has been increased massively, but guess what? His attack speed has been greatly reduced. It went up from 2 seconds to whooping 5 seconds. 5 seconds cooldown just for the basic attack. But it will make sense, don't worry about it. The stun also has been nerfed from 1.5 seconds to 1 second. There's no delay in between the attacks, meaning that he can strike up to X amount of enemies at the same time. The attack range has been reduced from 500 to 450. But once you get Lord of the Storm, you can hit a crap ton of enemies. You can hit 3, then 7, and then 11. 11 enemies. And he deals significantly higher damage, so you could get very chunky amount of damage from him. And the idea behind it is you kind of want to use him against hordes mostly, where his whole point is do damage to everybody in the group and stun them for a bit. And you want to kind of micro him around that. And if you're wondering about his ultimate, well, it got reworked as well. Now it has a much longer lifetime, but the attack speed has been increased as well from 2 seconds to 1.6 seconds. However, the damage suffered a lot. It went down from whopping 550 to 850 to 130 and then 150 true damage. But it has also a little bit more attack range from 320 to 360. And Son of the Storm has a lot more ammo. It has 30, 40, 50 and then 60 shots. And due to the higher lifetime, you can stack up quite a few of them. I believe the most you can get is up to 7, maybe 8. So yeah, imagine stacking all of these. It's gonna be pretty awesome. And that's kind of his way of dealing with higher tier enemies and doing damage to bosses. One more that I want to mention before we move on is Biresad. He got his damage improved a little bit, so now it's a little slightly more consistent. The Avarice passive has been removed. Instead, now he has Lustful Fire, which makes it so that every basic attack has 18% chance of setting the enemy on fire, which deals 40 true damage per second over 4 seconds. Or, in that case, he can deal up to 160 true damage, which is pretty nice. Again, it's 18% chance, so you might say it's kinda low, but you have to keep in mind he has 1 second attack speed, so you can apply it quite often, if I do say so myself. Fear of the Dragon got nerfed. The movement speed modifier when enemies are running away got reduced from 2.5 to 1.6, or in this case, instead of 150%, enemies move 60% faster while they're running. Also, Fear of the Dragon, as far as that ability goes, to compensate for the massive nerf, it has a slight cooldown reduction. It went down from 22 seconds to 20 seconds, so at least you can use it a little bit more often. There have been a lot of changes when it comes down to Reborn. Again, I can't go through all of them because that video is gonna be taking forever. But for now, I think that's all I'm gonna mention. Okay, I lied. The last thing I want to mention is the upgrade system, because some of the upgrades got changed a little bit. For example, Pit Lord, it can no longer hit aerial units, and the Infernal Combustion damage got reduced from 170 to 150. Guild of Merchants ability cost is increased from 15% to 20%, so in that case, instead of an ability being 15% cheaper, it's gonna be 20% cheaper. War Rations got a nerf, so now it only gives 20% the bonus HP to barrack units as opposed to 25%. There was also a bug where the GXR 1 targeting system was not giving the proper amount of range increase, so that got patched. Master Architect cost has been increased from 10 soul points to 12. Fear of the Dam cost has been increased from 6 to 8. Guild of Merchants cost has been increased from 7 to 8. The extra impacts has been reduced from 6 to 5. The cost, by the way, not the amount of impacts. Call of the Damned cost has been increased from 5 to 6. Blitz Tactics cost has been reduced from 5 to 4. And last but not least, the Trained Goonies cost has been increased from 4 to 5. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for now. Again, there's a lot more balance changes than that. I've only mentioned a fraction of them. So, if you want to check everything, I'll leave a changelog down into the description. And if you want to check the mod, there's the link for the mod and the changelog are basically in the same folder. So you can get the mod and read through the changelog, which is kind of nice. Or, which if you want to do even better, you can join my Discord server, get the mod, and also contribute to its development. Because even though this is the first anniversary update, it's definitely not gonna be the last update for Reborn. I'm probably gonna take a break after this because that update took a short eternity to complete, but I promise you there will be more coming to Reborn over time. But for now, I think I'm gonna stop and focus on the other mods like Brutality and potentially a third mod for Vengeance that will be coming later this year. So yeah, well, with that out of the way, I think that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I appreciate you for sticking around to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future, and while you're at it, drop a like on the video, it means a lot to me. And I will see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy, over and out.